Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're in Mark chapter 5, and we're going to be starting in verse 7 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, we start in verse 7, but Jesus now has these two demon-possessed men come to him. They're crying, they're shrieking, they cut themselves, they look terrible, they're naked, and they come to him. And it says in verse 6, but when they saw Jesus afar off, they ran and worshiped him. And again, we said that last lesson that it wasn't the men that came, it was the demon spirits that forced these two men to come over, and they worshiped the Lord, not as we worship the Lord, but because they acknowledged Jesus as having full authority and power over them and over their kingdom. So now we get into verse 7, and it says here, and they cried with a loud voice and said, what have we to do with you, Jesus, the Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee not by God not to torment me, right? So he says here, what have I to do with thee? And this is the same phrase that we saw that the unclean spirit said in chapter 1 and verses 23 and 24. Same thing. And it basically means, what is there between you and me? Or you could interpret it that, what do we have in common? Jesus, what do you and I have in common? All right. Or why are you interfering with us? So these demon spirits come to Jesus and say, why are you interfering with us? Because it's believed that, these two men were unsaved. Therefore, the demons believed they had a right to be in them. And so why are you interfering with us? Why are you bothering us? We are okay inside these men. And so now Jesus is getting ready to cast them out. And he says here, and they cried, what have I to do with thee? And then it says, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God. Now, this is the first occurrence where the name Most High God is used in the New Testament. The name for God was used as early as in Abraham's time, when Melchizedek was the priest of what? The Most High God, right? So this name for God, the Most High God, was used back in Genesis chapter 14 and verse 18. And it was also used by Balaam in Numbers 24:16. And also this phrase, Most High God, was used by Moses in Deuteronomy 32 and verse 8. And it is used many times in the prophets and in the Psalms. So it's interesting that the very first occurrence of this phrase, the Most High God, is used by a demon spirit, right? By a demon spirit. These demon spirits knew that they were in the presence of the Son of the one and only God Most High. They knew who Jesus was. They remembered him. Again, they knew Jesus in his pre-incarnate state, and they greatly remember the Most High God. They remembered Jesus when Jesus was in heaven before he came to earth, because they were there too, worshiping him and serving him. So they know who Jesus is, and they know that he is the Son of the Most High God. And they remember God too. And it says here in verse 7, they said, I adjure thee by God that you torment me not. Now, this phrase, I adjure thee by God, it means that the demon in this man was beseeching Jesus in the name of God, the very God that he used to praise and worship and serve in heaven in eternity past. Right? So he's beseeching Jesus in the name of God the Father in heaven. And this demon remembers they remember everything. Okay? Believe me, they haven't forgotten. They haven't forgotten. They remember what heaven looks like. And they know who God is, and they know who Jesus is. And then it says, the last part of verse 7, that you torment me not. Now, in Luke chapter 8 and verse 31, this is the same passage of scripture in Luke. It says, we see that they asked Jesus not to command them to go into the deep. Don't command us to go into the deep. That's what they said. Now, the Greek word for deep is abyss. And most commentators believe that abyss here refers to the bottomless pit. Now, there are some also that believe that the word abyss is talking about going into hell. All right? Now, let's take a few minutes and go over these words here. All right? There are 4 places of punishment that are named in the Bible. In the Bible, there are 4 places, specific, different places that are named in the Bible, all right, that are used for punishment. The first one is hell. And the Hebrew word is Sheol. And the Greek is Hades. And it's where all unsaved people go after they die. All right? So you have Sheol and Hades, which refer to hell. Then you have the second place, which is the bottomless pit. And the Hebrew for the bottomless pit is Abaddon. And the Greek for bottomless pit is Apolia. And we see this in Revelation chapter 9, verses 1 through 21, and Revelation 20, verses 1 through 3. And the bottomless pit is a specific place where demons or fallen spirits are cast. They're cast into the bottomless pit. You can read those verses in Revelation if you'd like. The third specific different place of punishment is Tartarus. Now, we see Tartarus in Genesis 6, verses 1 through 7, and we also see it in 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 and 5, and finally we see it in Jude, verse 6. Now, Tartarus is a completely different place than hell and the bottomless pit. And it is a place where the demons were cast that came down in Noah's day, and they had sex with women in order to pollute the seed of men so that Jesus could not be born as the God man. All right? They produced a race of giants. And we see that in Revelation 6, verses 1 through 4. All right? It's believed that the demons came, those that were cast out of heaven, they came to the earth. And one of the ways that they were trying to, they were trying to prevent Jesus from being born as the God-man and being able to redeem mankind from their sins, to be able to redeem them and take them to heaven, was that they came and they had sex with women. And it produced a race of giants. And their purpose was to eventually to infect the whole human race with their seed, so that everyone on earth would be part human and part angelic, in a sense. Part human and part, because Jesus, in order for Jesus to be the kinsman redeemer, he had to be fully God and fully man. God and man. He had to be the God-man, not the God-man and angel, but the God-man. So the demon spirits came to infiltrate and to prevent Jesus from being the God-man, from being our Redeemer. And it was an attack against humanity. It was an attack to prevent Jesus from being born as the God-man, so that he could not redeem us and take us to heaven. All right? And the fourth place of torment, the fourth place of punishment is, of course, the lake of fire. And the Hebrew word is Tophet, and the Greek is Gehenna. And the lake of fire is the final abode of all demons and of all unsaved people. All right? All of the fallen angels and all of the demons that are in Satan's kingdom will be cast there, and all unsaved people. It says in Revelation that everything, even death and hell, were cast into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the final abode. At the end of the age, it's not hell. Hell is not the final abode, right? Hell is just a waiting place. It's just a waiting area. That's all, until the white throne judgment. And then when the unsaved people come up out of hell and they stand before God and they are judged at the white throne judgment, then they are cast into the lake of fire, not back into hell, but into the lake of fire. All right. Now, if you want a more in-depth teaching on it, you can go to my extended teachings on YouTube, and you can go to find my teachings where it says extended teachings. Click on that, and I have a message on heaven and hell, and it explains all of that. Okay. So it says here that the abyss of which they were afraid of, they were afraid that Jesus would send them to this place, and that this abyss is a place of great fire. We see this in Revelation 9, verses 1 and 2. It's a place of fire, of smoke, and of pain. All right? It's a place of tremendous torment. So here, he says here in I adjure thee by God that you torment me not, right? You torment me not. And Luke says that they didn't want Jesus to cast them into the abyss, right? Because the abyss is a place of smoke and of fire and of torment and of pain, and they don't want to go there. So they're beseeching Jesus, please don't send us there to that place of torment. But there is a less kind of torment that these demon spirits could be subject to, and that is to be cast out of these men and to be left to roam the earth in order to find another habitation. So another kind of torment that they could experience would be to be cast out of them and then find some other creature to inhabit. The demon spirits may experience some form of suffering or misery while they are free here on earth to serve Satan and his kingdom, right? Yet it is nothing. That kind of suffering is not compared to the suffering of the bottomless pit. All right? There is, they would way much rather have this suffering here on earth than to be cast into the bottomless pit. So this is what they're beseeching him. They're beseeching Jesus, what have you to do with us? They are our property. Why are you here? Don't bother us. We're okay inside these two men. And then, they see that Jesus is getting ready to cast them out. And it's like, don't cast us into the abyss. We don't want to go there. Let us go somewhere else, Now, this brings up an interesting point. Isn't it sad that demon spirits know the certainty of their eternal destination, which is the lake of fire, whereas man disbelieves and even mocks the thought of eternal punishment? Isn't that true? That demons, listen, Satan's kingdom knows what the end is going to be. Now, it doesn't mean that Satan has actually seen the lake of fire. It's possible that even none of the angels have seen it. But Satan knows, Satan and his kingdom, the demon spirits, they know that there is a lake of fire. And they know that the punishment in that lake of fire is going to be really bad. I mean, really bad. For us, inconceivably terrible, the punishment in the lake of fire. And these demons, they don't want to go there. They don't want to go to the bottomless pit. All right? Bottomless pit's different than the lake of fire, but eventually they all get cast into the lake of fire. And that's the final abode. That's it. And these demon spirits there, they know their destination, and yet mankind mocks any kind of, they ridicule, they disbelieve any kind of thought of eternal punishment, right? Of eternal punishment. And it's sad because people are on their way. They're on their way to an eternity in a lake of fire, and they don't know it. They don't believe it. Maybe they know about it. They've heard about it, but they don't believe it. And they give no credence to it at all. And yet God is trying to warn us about the fact that this is what sin does. Sin causes a separation, and sin. This is why Jesus had to come and die for us on the cross, to shed his blood for us, so that we can be saved. What? From the wrath of God. What is the lake of fire? The lake of fire is the wrath of God poured out upon the Christ-rejecting world, upon a God-rejecting world. All right? This is what the lake of fire is. It's God's punishment. This is God's punishment for rejecting who he is, rejecting his love, rejecting his care, rejecting his provisions for us, rejecting God altogether. And there's a lake that burns with fire, and it is for all of eternity. It never ends. Never ends. All right? We're going to finish there, and we're going to continue on in verse 8 next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.